Working closely with other people for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, can be immensely rewarding. But there can also be problems, challenges, and conflicts. People bring different personalities, different styles, and different expectations to the workplace. Rowena Smith is a human resources professional. Part of her role involves dealing with issues that arise between employees and management.
Some of the things that cause conflict in a workplace could be poor performance, could be poor communication between people, or just different working styles. One situation that might happen between employees might be if they're working on a project and one of the team members isn't necessarily pulling their weight. That can cause people to get quite upset because they might be putting in extra hours.
Lavina has had the experience of working with a negative colleague.
A while ago, I worked on a very small team and we had to finish a really big project within a year. Unfortunately, there was just one individual who was particularly negative and would say things like, "Oh, we'll never make this deadline. This can't be done. It's impossible." My own motivation and morale got affected. And so I was thinking that in order to try and help the team, that I would try and maybe put more of a positive perspective on the situation. I would try and say something like, well, actually, maybe we can do this, but why don't we break down the situation into manageable steps, and then we can all make it work.
Relatively minor problems can arise more often when employees have little experience of the workplace.
When employees are quite new to a workplace, often they have to learn what that looks like, kind of how to balance work life and personal life, but also learning business etiquette. So what's okay to do, what's not okay to do, the demands of what a professional life looks like.
James has encountered difficulties like these.
When people are talking quite loudly in an open plan environment, that can be quite frustrating. When you're trying to work, I personally prefer working in a quiet environment. What I tend to do in that kind of situation when that occurs is I go up to them and I try to speak to them calmly and tell them that their volume is too loud. If they could please turn it down, that'd be great. And often it works.
When it comes to problems between employees and managers, James has had the experience of being micromanaged by a boss.
She looked over my shoulder, she checked every email that I sent, and she didn't only do this with me, she did it with other members of the team. I felt like I wasn't trusted to do my job, even though I had proven time and time again that I was able to do my job and I was able to write an email or do simple basic things. So it did affect my morale. I think there's a fine line between being guided by someone and having someone look over your shoulder and micromanage you. But it did make me feel like I had to be on top of my game all the time.
As HR, when we're dealing with situations where a manager is micromanaging a team, we would need to sit with the manager and employee and just work out how they can trust each other again and the ways that they can work together well. And then we would try to kind of step back and let them kind of get on and just support when it's necessary.
Lavina has come up against a problem at work with wider company policy. For example, where employees are unhappy with a management decision.
It's a company policy at our office to have hot desking. And to be honest, nobody really likes hot desking. So every day, basically, you have to come into the office and you have to find a place to sit and you have to set up your keyboard to the docking station because you never know where you're going to sit. You don't get the opportunity very often to sit with your team members. I think this is actually something that really affects people because you don't feel as connected or close to your team.
Lavina's team raised the issue with management, and there are now designated team areas in the office. But a company can try to avoid these kinds of conflict altogether.
If there is a big thing happening, for example, an office move, or people are moving into kind of a hot desking arrangement, then as HR, we'd advise that we consult with them before that happens, just so we can take on board everybody's opinion and make sure that everybody's happy.
But what is Rowena's advice if someone isn't getting along well at work?
When conflict does arise in a workplace, if it's not dealt with quickly, it can escalate and actually become a bigger issue. If an employee is having some issues, then I'd advise that they speak to their line manager or they can come to HR. We're very happy to have those conversations.